Hey guys, got another knife review for you today. This one's going to be on another affordable, cheap knife. This is the Columbia River Knife and Tool Edgie. This knife is $20. I would say you could probably find these as cheap as maybe $15 to $18, and the most you're going to pay for this is maybe $25. So it is very affordable. What you got here is a knife. It looks kind of plain, nothing special. But this one here actually has a self-sharpening system inside the handle. I'll go over that in just a moment. First I want to talk about the blade here. The blade is 420 J2 stainless steel, 2.9 inches long. Now 420 J2 is kind of a softer steel, but I could see why they went with that for this specific application because of the self-sharpening mechanism in here. You want to kind of a softer steel for this. I would say this knife is probably ideal for people in warehouse or stockroom type situations where you're opening a lot of boxes, cardboard, stuff like that, plastic straps. Being that it is a softer steel, you're not going to have a tendency to chip your edge on like those hard plastic zip ties and things of that nature. This is a sheep's foot style blade. Okay, that's that where you have the completely straight edge, cutting edge, and you have that curve down towards the tip. Sheep's foot having more of a fatter end. Wharncliffe style blade is very, very similar, only let me use this pen. Actually, I have my notes here. Let me draw you a little picture real quick. Sheep's foot being more, I want to say more like this, where it's kind of blunted on the tip, and a Wharncliffe blade being more like this. You still have that completely straight edge, okay, but you have more of a lower angle, so you still have a point. Okay, that's the big difference between the two. Why I have my notes here, I might as well read what I wrote down. Alright, I wrote down that there's a 420 J2 steel blade, which I said 2.9 inches long, and the handle is 4.13 inches long. And I also jotted down that these are $20, which I already told you. But anyway, this blade style is very, very ideal for rescue type knives. Basically because there's no actual point on the blade, you're not going to be stabbing into your victim on accident when you're trying to free them, whether it be a jammed seatbelt or perhaps they have some kind of injury to the leg and you have to cut their pants off or cut away clothing to get to it. So it is ideal in the rescue type business, EMTs and firefighters, stuff like that. But anyway, this knife specifically, they put a chisel grind on here. One thing I want to mention that I loved, okay, about this knife is that they used the chisel grind correctly. I'll explain. The chisel grind, the actual grind itself, I gotta draw something for you again. A chisel grind is, alright, let me show you this. Imagine a blade, okay, like this, being like a top view, okay, and you have your sharpened edge on both sides making kind of a V, right? Probably most common type of grind. A chisel grind is where one side is completely flat, okay, and your whole angle is on the other side, okay? So it's as if you sharpen this side, sharpening it this way, imagine this being a rod or something, and you're never really touching this side whatsoever. This side is completely flat. You're just doing your main grind on this side. That's a chisel grind. Makes her a very sharp edge. The problem is that because this side looks nicer, for presentation purposes, a lot of companies like Emerson, not to knock Emerson, they make absolutely awesome knives. This is one of the main reasons why I don't own any Emersons right now, though. But believe me, this is nothing against them. They really make very, very high quality knives. But what they do is for aesthetics purposes and because of looks, they put the grinding part on the front of the blade, as if you were to hold the handle like this, being a righty, which most people are, you have that grind in the front for looks. Actually, someone on the forums had asked them why they did that, and the reply by the representative was, well, we like the grind on the front because it looks better in pictures. So, but anyway, what I'm getting at here is when you have the grind on the back and you're using your right hand, that chisel grind, you can actually really get up to the edge on something, okay? When you're using a chisel ground knife, when you're cutting fibrous materials or really hard, like I guess some kind of rubber, you have a tendency to slide away from that grind. Kind of hard to explain, but basically this is the correct way to have a chisel grind on a right-handed knife. You know, if you're a lefty, of course, yeah, you want on the opposite side. So in the example of Emerson knives, if you're a lefty, they're great. But for the, I would say for the most part, daily tasks, cutting tasks, it's not going to be an issue whatsoever. I'm talking about when you're using a knife more extensively. But I did want to just point that out. That's something I really like they did. They actually put it on the right side here. So basically, the flat end of the blade, you can get up to the flat end. All right. I know it's still kind of confusing and hard to understand. All right, I got a piece of paper here, right? Imagine that this is, I don't know, carpeting, okay, up against the wall. Now, the grind that it has right now, because I'm righty, I'm able to get in there, and the blade is at the very edge of the wall to cut the carpeting, right? If the grind was on the other side, then as the blade's up against the wall, it's not cutting on the edge because the grind is pointing that way. So I'm actually cutting a little bit off of where I'm aiming. I hope that better explains what I'm talking about. And obviously, if I were to hold the knife lefty with the grind where it's supposed to be, it would be too awkward for me to use that knife in that manner. I don't know if I confused it more by doing that or totally explained it, but hopefully it wasn't too confusing. Regardless, it makes for a very, very sharp edge, and the main attraction on this knife is the self-sharpening mechanism. Now, the inside of this handle, there is a mounted sharpening, I guess, plate, you would say. It's not thick enough to be considered a stone. It's just a plate with diamond. It's diamond coated or dusted, so that when you shut this knife, okay, when you close it, just give it a little tiny squeeze. That's all you need is this. Just that right there. It's set on an angle so that when you do that, you're rubbing the edge on that diamond plate, therefore taking off some metal and sharpening your blade. Very cool, because a lot of people don't want to or don't know how to sharpen their own knives. So I would say this knife, even after you use this for a fairly long amount of time and it starts getting kind of dull on you, every time you close the thing, it's going to touch it up a little, which is awesome. It's really good. However, because they did this and put that little plate in there, I believe they didn't have room. Now, I don't know if this was a conscious design thing that they did here, or if it was a mistake. But there's no lock on this knife. Well, I shouldn't say that, because I shouldn't say mistake, because I know they didn't make this knife on accident. There was a lot of thought that went into it. What I'm trying to say is this is a slip joint knife. Okay, there's no locking mechanism. There's a strong back spring, but if you hit that blade, it's going to close on you. What I'm saying is, I think because of the fact they did this interior sharpening system, they didn't really have room for some kind of lock. That's kind of what I'm trying to get at here, is that I think the only way they could have made this work is if they didn't put a locking mechanism on the knife. So that's what I was trying to say. Basically, you don't really, if you practice safe cutting habits, you don't really need a locking mechanism on your knife. But obviously, if you're one of those people that just use your knife, you're not really thinking all the time, it might not be for you, because again, it can fold up on you if you're not paying attention. But you know, if you're using common sense and paying attention to what you're doing, it shouldn't be an issue whatsoever. But it is a good knife. It has the round oval cutout to get that blade out. Very easy to get it out. To close it, I free my fingers out of the channel here. Just give it a little push and then close it with my thumb. Pocket clip is very nice. It is not swappable or removable. Well, it is removable, but you can't reposition it, I should say, elsewhere on the knife. It is only meant for a tip-down carry in the right-hand pocket. But overall, it's really nice. It's kind of a cool pattern on the front here, where the grip is. You see there, kind of a squiggle type pattern. I have to say, I carry this knife. I EDC my other knives to try to check them out, but this knife is the only one I've actually taken to work, and I put it actually through some good testing in cutting different plastic straps and twine and cardboard, and it has held up fantastically. Really good for 20 bucks. So I do like this knife quite a bit. I like the design they did. The lock, if that's the lock, being that there is no lock, if that's something that you don't like, don't even bother with this one. But if it's something you don't mind, it can be a very good user knife. So there's my review. Thank you for tuning in, and I appreciate you watching.